everyone, welcome back. My name's Morgan. This is my channel, Pisces Paperbacks. Today I'm going to be doing the end of the year book tag. This tag was originally created by Ariel Bissett in like 2017. I'm not exactly sure the first year, but even though it's not the end of the year, she says in her podcast that I love, that I listen to every week, she's like, it's not meant to be like at the end of the year, it's meant to be in preparation for the end of the year. So actually, probably would have been good to put this out like beginning of September, but here we are. Last week of September, beginning of October, and now I am preparing my reading plans for the end of the year. Let's get right on into it. Question number 1 is, do I have any books that I've started that I need to finish by the end of the year? And I don't. I tend to not put books down in the middle. I will say, some notable exceptions, I started the Southern Book Club's Guide for Slaying Vampires like in 2020, and I still do plan to read it. I'm 100 pages in, and I just like put it down and never picked it back up. I do own it. I plan on finishing it, but not this year. In terms of book that I've started this year and haven't just like fully DNF'd, there's only one, and that is Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. I'm literally only 4 pages in, so I don't know if that counts, but it has been like 2 weeks since I picked it up. Maybe. And I'm not DNFing it. I just like got distracted. Question number 2 is, do you have any autumnal reads to transition you into the season? And I love fall. I love autumn. It's my favorite time of year. It's my favorite season. It's my favorite weather. It's my favorite holiday, Halloween. So I absolutely do have some autumnal reads to transition me through. And I have 4 of them here. You can see there's a bit of a color scheme. I love horror, so you'll notice that that is maybe a trend. But the ones that I think of when I think horror are like moody, more gothic in vibe, or haunted house. Obviously this one, The September House by Carissa Orlando, this just like says September in the name, so I really should have read it this month, but it's okay. I want to read it this year. This was a gift from my friend Julia. She got it for me last year when I was sick with COVID, and I just haven't read it yet, but I really want to read it this year. I love haunted houses, and I think this one will be really fun. And then another one that I think will be good is The Hacienda by Isabel Canas, also a gift from Julia, funnily enough. But this, I just feel like I love gothic literature. I think my favorite book of all time is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. That is like the OG gothic romance, and I've never read Rebecca, and I believe this is kind of a reimagining of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and I want to read Rebecca. I own it, so maybe I'll throw that in kind of as another autumnal read, but I would like to read this. I just feel like the vibes feel fall. Similarly, What Feasts at Night. So this is the sequel novella to What Feeds the Dead, or What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, which I read maybe 2 years ago, last year, and I loved. It was very mushroomy. I don't think this one is also mushroomy, but because the first one was, that just feels fall to me. Mushrooms, I don't know. And so I am so excited to read this. It's so short. I feel like I could just eat it up in a day. You know what I mean? And last of my autumnal reads, what is more autumnal than going back to school? This is We Ride Upon Sticks by Quan. It is a, I think, kind of weird novel about a field hockey team that kind of makes a deal with an entity to have a winning season. And it's kind of written in a unique way. I really love like interesting perspectives when books are written in them. I really don't mind like second person writing, like where it's like you did this, you did that, or like collective first where it's like we did this, we did that. Just kind of any alternative storytelling styles I'm really into, and I think this one is kind of more of a collective perspective. I'm so excited to read this. I also think it's just like such a cute cover, this pink. I don't know if it'll show up on camera. It is truly, it really blinds the eye in a way that I like. Question number 3 is, do you have any new releases that you're still waiting for this year? And yes, I do believe that, oh God, I think it's called Heavenly Tyrant. The sequel to Iron Widow is finally coming out officially for real this time in December. I think December 10th, which is also the same day that What the Woods Took is coming out, which I read recently and posted a video about. That's so fun. But Heavenly Tyrant, if that is, I feel like it's the right name. I should have looked this up. It's a sequel to Iron Widow. Iron Widow came out and I read it years ago at this point, like at least 3 years ago, and I loved it. It was so fun. It's this kind of YA sci-fi with like giant fighting mecha robot suits with a kind of cool power system inspired by ancient Chinese history. It is so compellingly written. I really enjoy the voice of the author, and I also really admire the author's kind of like presence in real life. They're very active and very political in, you know, their statements that they're making, pro-Palestine statements, etc., things like that. And I think that there's been a bit of kind of pushback maybe that's influenced whether or not their book was finally getting published. So it's finally happening. Heavenly Tyrant is going to see the world, and I'm going to read it as soon as possible. I'm so excited. Question number 4, what are 3 books that you want to read before the end of the year? So not including the 4 that I just showed you, here are a few that I'm just so excited to read. First, and the one that I'm like most surprised by, I have The Secrets of Winterhouse by Ben Guterson here. This is the sequel to Winterhouse, which I read a couple months ago. I read it right at the beginning of September, and I really liked it. I was surprised by how much it's like made me excited to read middle grade fantasy again, because as I was reading, I do remember being like kind of annoyed by the main character and how kind of quirky the wordplay and like the puns and the anagrams were. Like I remember being a little bit like, all right, but I finished it and I was like, I can't wait to read the second one. And I happened to have the second one because we had it at work and I got to take it home. And so I'm so excited to read this. I think it'll be so fun. I haven't looked, oh my God, look at the cover. I haven't taken it off yet. That is so cool. It's like the inside of the buildings that are on the cover. That is so slay. This is a middle grade series about a girl named Elizabeth who loves wordplay and reading, and she's very imaginative and intelligent, and she gets sent to stay at Winterhouse Hotel for the Christmas holiday season by her horrible aunt and uncle. And when she gets there, she like makes a friend and kind of gets swept up into this mystery about the founding family of the hotel. And there's kind of magic and powers and, you know, intrigue. I really enjoyed the first one. I think I gave it 3.5 stars, but if it sticks with me enough, I might bump it up to 4. I don't know. This is the sequel. I'm very excited to read this very soon, just because it's a series that I seem to be very excited about for some reason. And then kind of on that same middle grade fantasy vibe, even though I wanted to read this one first, I owned this one first. This is, actually no, I owned Winterhouse first. Never mind. This is Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. I know the 3rd book in this series just came out. This is another middle grade fantasy about a girl who I think her brother goes missing, and she is convinced he's alive, and she kind of, again, gets swept up into a fantasy world in a more, I think, literal way than in Winterhouse. Winterhouse is a little bit more based in reality, like based in our world with magical elements. This is more, I think, of a comp for Nevermore, I've heard, where they literally get taken to a kind of more magical society, magical world. So I'm also very excited for this. And then the last book I want to mention in this little category of books I really want to read before the end of the year is You Should Be So Lucky by Cat Sebastian. I bought this a couple months ago. It is a historical baseball sports romance between 2 men, and I might have mentioned, I got really into sports, specifically baseball, over the last like 1.5 years, and I really want to read this in October because it is during postseason. The playoffs are happening starting like this weekend. I'm literally so excited. The Phillies got a 1st round bye. I won't talk about it too much, but I just feel like this is the perfect romance to read during baseball season. So I guess this is also kind of, for me, an autumnal read, although I do think it happens during the summer, which is like the bulk of the baseball season. So this is another one that I really want to read before the end of the year. It also will help to be my Y book for my A to Z reading challenge, which will be nice. And a bunch of the other books that I mentioned also will fulfill challenges that I'm doing as well. So I really want to read them. So the next question, is there a book that you think could still like surprise you and be your favorite of the year? And kind of no, my favorite of the year right now, favorite book I've read so far in 2024 is Cuckoo by Gretchen Falker Martin. I loved this one. I know that there's problems with it. I definitely think the 3rd act is a lot weaker than the first 2, but the drive and verve with which I read this book really kind of has not been comparable to anything else I've read this year. This made me so excited to read from the very first chapter. I still think one of the prologue is one of my favorite chapters I've read ever, and this year especially. Like, I loved this book. But to be fair, I do own Gretchen Felker Martin's first book, Manhunt, which I think is also a really interesting horror take that I might really enjoy. I love queer horror. This, I think, is more of a post-apocalyptic kind of zombie-esque thing, and I love zombies, especially in kind of a more tongue-in-cheek horror comedy situation. And I mean, this is kind of a comedic setup. I mean, look at the cover. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. I've really been into that lately. So I think this one might have a shot, but I also don't know if I'm gonna read it this year. Generally, I just don't know if anything is going to top Cuckoo. And last question, have I already started making plans for my reading in 2025? Which I cannot believe it's literally going to be 2025. That is horrific. That is so scary. But I kind of have. I really, really want to read 100 books next year. I'm not like setting a lot of really strict rules for that. Obviously, I have my Reading the Olympics challenges, which I really haven't started yet, even though I'm very excited for. Kind of thinking it's going to start next year. Like, those are going to be like the 4 years that I'm tackling it. But I want to read 100 books in a year again. The past 2 years I've read in like the 70s. This year I'm on track to read in the 50s, so it's going down. But like, my passion and love for reading has not gotten less. I just like can't sit down and read a book to save my life. So I really, really want to read 100 books next year. That is it's going to be my only goal. I'm going to abandon any and all long-term, year-long challenges that I'm doing. Like, this year I have like 4 that I'm attempting that kind of all overlap. I'm doubling up books, but it doesn't help that I have limited myself in that way at all. So fingers crossed, next year I would like to read at least 100 books, and I think I can do it because I've done it before. I did it 3 years in a row. I read 112, I read 150, and then I read like 130. I know I can do it, but I haven't in like 3 years. And so this year, nope, not this year, next year, I'm gonna be back. I want to read 100 books so bad, and I know I can do it. I am determined. So that's gonna be it. That's the conclusion of my end of the year reading tag. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your plans are for the end of the year. Are you planning to read any of these? And if you've already read them, do you think I'll like them? Like, is my excitement warranted, or am I really hyping myself up for disappointment? I would love to know. Let me know, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!